May 18th, 1991. Hector Camacho and Greg Haugan meet again. Just 3 months earlier, Camacho got too macho in the ring against Haugan. The cheap shot swung the decision to Haugan. But now Camacho gets a chance to avenge his only loss by order of the WBO after Haugan failed a post-fight drug test. Camacho and Haugan get it on for the second time on Classic Night at the Fights. Next.
In his 11 years as a pro, Hector Camacho has never experienced this. Entering the ring, coming off a loss. Here comes Greg Haugan, the man who handed Camacho that loss. 3 times he has won a world title. And what a bounce back win it was just 3 months ago when he earned the split decision victory over the Macho Man in Vegas. Joe Tessitore alongside the Iceman John Scully. Now Ice, when Haugan defeated Camacho the first go-round, he barely did enough. In fact, many of the critics would say if he didn't get that point deduction, we wouldn't even be talking about this rematch in the same light. Does he have to fight the perfect fight tonight just to get back to that point?
Right. I mean, I think he obviously showed that despite getting the victory, he needed to start quicker. He needed to do some things differently. I mean, the fact is that point swayed the fight in his favor. I mean, otherwise it's a draw. And so he definitely has to step it up. It's not like he could come back and confidently say, yeah, I already beat the guy, you know, so I have the key to victory.
Let's get the official introductions from Michael Buffer.
Present the rematch. This fight is sanctioned by the World Boxing Organization. President Ramon Peña Acevedo. Supervisor at ringside, former light heavyweight champion of the world, Jose Torres. And the Nevada State Athletic Commission, Chairman Dr. James Nave. Commissioners, Luther Mack, Nat Carasali, Bruce Lane, and Dr. Elias Ghanem. The Executive Director is Chuck Minker. Our 3 physicians at ringside are Dr. James McLennan, Dr. John Whitman, and Dr. Phil Komansky. Timekeeper, Steve Manzel. Counting the knockdown seconds, John Rogers. The 3 judges assigned at ringside for this bout, scoring it on a 10-point plus system, are Doug Tucker, Bert Clements, and Dave Moretti. And in the ring at this time, the referee assigned to this bout, working for the 15th time in a world title event from Tucson, Arizona, is Bobby Barrera. And now, ladies and gentlemen, from the Reno Sparks Convention Center here in the biggest little city in the world, Reno, Nevada. Introducing first, heading out the red corner, wearing the white trunks with purple trim. You guys are even 139 pounds, fighting out of Las Vegas, Nevada. His professional record, 28 victories with 13 KOs, 3 defeats, and 1 draw. Ladies and gentlemen, a 3-time world champion. Wearing the brown colors with fringe and weighing in at 138 pounds. Originally from Spanish
Good luck to both of you. Shake hands. Go ahead and wait for the bell.
The look away on the shake hands and wait for the bell. The last time a referee instructed Hector Camacho and Greg Haugan to touch him up was before the final round of their last fight just 3 months ago. That's when Camacho was deducted a point because he refused to touch gloves with Haugan at the start of that 12th round, and it cost him a split decision loss. It would have been a draw. Now, the rematch here in Reno. Be interesting to see the disposition of Camacho tonight, John Scully, because what we saw in the pre-fight introductions, and specifically the way that he came to the ring, is not typical form for Hector Camacho at all.
Right, well, it was very noticeable. He had a very serious look on his face, hyped up. And he's usually hyped up, but in a much different way, in a playful way. It's like a show to him. But he's probably going to fight a little harder, a little earlier, so it might actually make for a better fight as far as for the fans to watch.
Haugan comes in behind the jab, nothing doing with the right hand though. Camacho easily blocked it. Camacho fires off a 1-2. Obviously the hand speed, always a big factor when you see a Camacho fight, and he has a distinct advantage in that department against Haugan, John.
Right, and he's being first a lot more in this fight. Normally he's a counter puncher. He kind of waits, tries to lull you to sleep. Here it seems like he's taking the initiative. So apparently he didn't take that one loss very well, and he wants to get it back here.
He's been fired up in all the lead up to this fight. In fact, he threw a punch at Haugan at the weigh-in.
See, and one thing to look for, he's not used to starting this fast. Not in recent times. When he was younger, when he fought Bazooka Limon and those guys, he started very fast. But in recent times, he's been more of a counter puncher. He's been patient. So it'd be interesting to see how his conditioning holds up for him to come out this fast.
It was last August when he had a walk in the park against Tony Baltazar, and that is being ruled a slip. And then, of course, just 3 months ago, February 23rd, when he went up against Haugan. Haugan was a very big underdog in Vegas, taking on the then undefeated Hector Camacho, and we know how that went. Haugan came on strong as the fight went on. The point deduction was very costly, and a split decision win went Haugan's way. A year ago at this time, Camacho was coming off a unanimous decision victory against Vinny Pazienza. Of course, Vinny Pazienza, one of the keys to define Greg Haugan's career. Vacant WBO junior welterweight belt on the line. Haugan and Camacho coming to the end of round number 1. "30-year-old Greg Haugan preparing himself for round number 2 in the rematch here in Reno. Hector Camacho in the dark trunks, Haugan in the white with the purple trim. Camacho back to the jab.
See, and Camacho, from the other times I've seen him, he's definitely throwing harder punches here. He's not landing all of them, but he's keeping Haugan at bay probably more than he would even if he was using the jab like he's supposed to. So Camacho, Haugan, maybe from getting dropped in the last fight, he's got some more respect for Camacho's punching power.
You know, John, it may seem like something that just is the normal course of action in a fight, but Bobby Ferrara just separated the men moments ago and warned Hector Camacho for holding behind the head. Now that's significant because we've seen many Camacho fights in the past where the ref will never even look his way, and he'll take advantage of every little thing he can take advantage of.
Right, I mean, in the Baltazar fight, he must have done it 150 times.
And got away with it.
And got away with it. Like, he was never even cautioned. It never was an issue. So that's why the referee is a huge factor, almost as much of a factor as the judges could be in some cases.
Bobby Ferrara from Arizona, real experienced referee. And early indications are that he's going to take control of these situations tonight. And that's significant. We have seen Camacho in the past cup the back of the head and try to fire off an uppercut. Now Haugan comes forward, and once again Camacho able to stall him. Right hand to the body from Haugan, but Camacho able to get away.
And, you know, talking about Camacho's tactics, referees are human, and I'm not saying that's the case in this fight, but just in general, there might be a referee at home watching Camacho fight, and he might, you know, he's a boxing fan. He says, you know, I hate when he does that. I hate when he does that. And then he gets him in a fight 6 months later, and now he's like, okay, I'm not going to let him do that tonight. So you never know. Maybe, you know, like I say, certain referees aren't going to let him get away with it. And that forces him to alter his plan because he's very effective with holding behind the head and landing good punches off of it.
One of these veteran guys is Hector Camacho, who has every tool on the tool belt. Flicks out that double jab, tried to place the straight left-handed, the stylish southpaw.
And actually, that's one of his best punches is the double jab and a straight left hand. But I think he's probably having a little trouble landing it here because he's trying so hard to. Camacho is brilliant when he just picks his shots and drops them in there unsuspectingly.
.28-win veteran Greg Haugan being given the advice to pick it up a little more. Camacho off to a strong start, trying to avenge the only loss of his career, 38-1. Camacho coming forward a little more than we have seen him in recent years.
This is how he used to fight more when he was younger, forcing the fight, letting his speed be the main factor, like he did there. You know, he lets his hands go, and when he lets his hands go, he's as good as anybody out there.
Lightning fast.
Oh, he's unbelievable.
Lightning fast.
And he does such a wide array of punches. He does uppercuts and hooks and jabs, and you know, he's hard to deal with. If he had the conditioning, which he may have, if he has the conditioning to keep being first and letting his hands go in combination, he's going to be hard to beat by anybody.
You know, this is such a much more attractive version of Hector Camacho when he's first, when he's not in that defensive counter-punching posture. He's a likable fighter. We've talked many times, you and I, through the years, about Hector Camacho being polarized, not just because of his personality, but because of his stylistic ways in the ring. This is the type of fighter, when he takes on this more aggressive attitude, and you see the skill set that can still accomplish things like this, that is hard not to like.
Right. Oh, he's fun to watch. And that's the thing, like, when he was young, he was one of the hottest guys out there when he fought Bazooka Limon and those guys. I mean, he was very exciting to watch. But by the same token, he showed in the last fight that being more patient and leaning back, laying back, he could probably control the fight a little bit better. This is more exciting to watch, though, definitely. And, you know, I think he's actually taking Haugan out of his game plan. I don't think Haugan expected Camacho to be quite as fast and let as many punches go as he does. And usually he throws 1, 2, or 3. Here he's throwing 4 and 5 in bunches.
Complete opposite of what we saw in the second half of their first meeting just 3 months ago in February in Las Vegas, when Camacho was able to control things with his typical fashion in the first half of the fight. But little by little, Haugan was able to come forward in the second half of that fight and have some offensive advantages. You know, you talk about the early days of Hector Camacho and stylistically the way he was. Many point to that night 5 years ago in New York against Edwin Rosario as the turning point for him.
I would say, you know, that it's pretty clear. Proof is in the pudding. I mean, it's pretty clear that he's been different since that time. But and a lot of people forget, before that, he was awesome.
Off to a good start tonight against Haugan. Two men who 3 times have been named world champions. Tonight, trying to claim that WBO junior welterweight belt. Round number 4. Haugan and Camacho. I'm Joe Tessitore alongside John Scully. John, things cannot continue this way for Greg Haugan if he wants to repeat what he was able to do to Camacho 3 months ago. What does he need to do to turn things around at this early stage?
Well, I think the fact that Camacho's not used to fighting at this pace for several years Haugan needs to engage him, I believe, you know, because I don't think he can out-slick Camacho, so he's got to fight with him. Make Camacho, if Camacho wants to fight like this, make him fight harder. And hopefully, like in the last fight, wear him down and get him later in the fight. It looks like both guys might be headed towards a repeat of the last fight in the sense of Camacho controlling the first half, maybe Haugan comes on in the second half.
See if Camacho keeps up this pace.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Everything to me right now looks like it's going to depend on Camacho's preparation for the fight.
Well, that brings up the question of, was his preparation for the last fight to blame for that first career loss? We know that he crashed to make weight back in February. You would think, just based on what we saw at the weigh-in, came in on weight, was fiery and focused, even threw a punch at Haugan. The way he came into the ring tonight, that probably kept up throughout his training regimen leading up to that.
Right, I would think he probably, you know, his people probably sat him down and said, listen, you can't afford another loss to this guy, not at this point in your career. You know, maybe a lot of people are on the verge of trying to write you off. A lot of people would like to get rid of you. And a lot of guys certainly don't want to fight you, so if you lose again to this guy, you're going to kill yourself as far as future fights go, getting with the big names. So he needs an impressive performance here tonight, definitely.
It's hard to believe we're talking about a three-time world champion with a 38-1 record as a guy who really needs to prove himself. But that's how devastating that loss to Greg Haugan was.
Right, and not just that, because I don't feel like Camacho, back in '82 and '83, he was. I remember Sugar Ray Leonard saying, "This guy's unbelievable. Camacho's a phenom," and he never reached that level. Really, even as great as he is, he never reached that level that he was supposed to, like superstar. And so a loss here, for a lot of guys, wouldn't be a huge deal. For this guy, you know, it'd be devastating, I believe.
And just the opposite in the career of Greg Haugan. Talk about writing somebody off. Keep in mind that it was just last summer when Haugan lost yet again to Vinny Pazienza, and 2 years ago when he was easily taken care of against Sweet Pea Pernell Whitaker. So that win 3 months ago against Camacho was huge for him at this stage of his career, kind of giving him a second life. End of 4. Sparks Convention Center in Reno, Nevada. A crowd that has rallied support for Greg Haugan, but they can relate to that rugged Wild West type. Haugan got his start winning Tough Man contests up in Alaska. Native of Seattle, now 30 years old, 3 times a world champion, and looking for back-to-back wins against Hector Macho Camacho. John, you could easily have Camacho up 4 rounds to zip after the first third of this fight.
I do. That's the way I see it, 4-0. He's fighting, you know, at a good pace. He's letting his hands go. It's probably the best offensive displays he's put on in several years. Part of that's probably, though, he seems to have Haugan mesmerized a little bit. Haugan hasn't figured out a plan B at all yet. And if he keeps this up, he'll lose every round. Haugan has to change his pace, use his jab more. He has a very good jab. He hasn't been able to use it very much with Camacho, but he needs to change his tactics and make the fight a little bit rougher here.
Haugan's one of those guys who, yes, he does certain things well, but one of the things that he does best is he's committed to the cause. He's going to stay in there and try to accomplish what he wants to accomplish throughout.
Right, and that's a good thing sometimes, but Camacho's got that. His speed kills, and it's killing him here. I mean, he's getting off a couple shots, and that's good, but then he gets hit with 3 or 4 in return, and he gets hit off of angles where he can't return fire. And, you know, Camacho's fighting a very good fight. Haugan definitely has to in other words, if he goes a couple more rounds like this, it's got to dawn on him that things aren't going to go his way. Maybe on the other side, maybe he senses something in Camacho that we don't see yet. Maybe he senses a slight drop in intensity level. Maybe he feels like he's making ground. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see in the next couple rounds if anything comes of it.
Camacho just playing keep away with that flicking jab for a moment. Now a more sturdy and steady jab from Haugan as he looks to corral him, and a flurry underneath from Camacho. Back to the jab. Bobby Ferrara, I think, is looking at the tape on the glove, and indeed he is. You can see it coming loose around the left wrist and the right wrist. It's not that he's a finicky referee, but that tape gets loose and it can cause a laceration or come across and rake the eyes of the opponent. You hear Ferrara saying, don't coach him. Tape only, no advice. So they continue on with round number 5. And once again, Haugan slips. Second time that has happened tonight. Double jab from Camacho. Straight left hand comes in.
See, he's got that good return fire. Like Camacho, he answers back so quickly. He's so relaxed. And this is a better Camacho to watch for the fans. I like watching both versions of him because I'm a fan of the technique of the game. But this is good for the crowd here.
Haugan darts in, and Camacho was quick to respond with a left hand. End of 5. The rematch in Reno, Haugan and Camacho. Haugan straight to the inside to start this 6th round. Now back out at range, both men utilizing the jab. Camacho triple jab, missed with the straight left, back to the inside, and Bobby Ferrara will separate him.
I think a huge factor in this fight so far, and it's going to be interesting to see if it keeps up, but Camacho has spring in his legs. He has good bounce, good quick bounce. And when you have spring in your legs, the punches flow so much better. And, you know, your legs carry you. They really, more than people realize. And he definitely has good legs. He's always had good legs, but tonight he's got that little bit of spring, and his release time is so quick, and Haugan just can't get away from it.
He's in such better shape tonight compared to what he was for the first fight 3 months ago.
And I think it's mental as much as anything.
Because he knows he did the work, right?
Right, and he's got the idea that he's going to look good, that he's not just going to lay back and you know, fool around almost. Here he seems to have much more purpose.
Fans responding to the left hand by Haugan. They've been looking for something to latch onto and to rally support. Haugan has always been a popular fighter here in Nevada. Into the inside, Haugan landed a left hand to the body. Camacho returned with a left of his own. Back to the inside, a flurry underneath from Camacho. And that's what he does very well and has always impressed the judges.
And that's what he's doing that Haugan either isn't or isn't able to attempt to do. He's not letting his hands go in 3 and 4. I don't think he's thrown more than 2 punches at a time the entire night. And
Haugan has always come across as very deliberate.
Right. And you know, you're not going to beat Camacho being deliberate, you know, at 1 or 2 shots. You know, he beat him last time because Camacho seemed to tire just a bit, and he got on him against the ropes. But here, this fight's been in the center of the ring, and that's the oldest thing in the book. When you first start boxing, they tell you, keep the fight in the center of the ring. And if you have the sharper reflexes and the faster hands, in the center of the ring, you're going to be hard to beat. See, now that's where Haugan wants to be. Now he's starting to close the gap a little bit towards the end of this round. He's got to get him back against the ropes and land punches anywhere he can hit him, on the arms, the gloves, the shoulders, the top of the head, whatever he can do.
This is a much better round for Greg Haugan. In the final minute, he's been able to corral Camacho, but Camacho has still been putting forth some offensive fireworks, at least in the form of hand speed with flurries. End of 6.
You're in condition. This man's in condition.
Now here we go with the, this is what it's all about. Counterpunching, that's his game, counterpunching.
Saw the left hand from Camacho land there in round 6. Start of the second half of this 12-round WBO championship fight.
And he's still fast. Camacho's still fast. He hasn't shown any signs to me really of slowing down other than about 15 seconds at the end of the last round.
Haugan finds the real estate a little better on the inside. He was able to get there at the end of the 6th round. Now back to the center of the ring. Haugan tries to get in behind a left hand. Camacho flurries underneath and gets out the side door again. Back to the jab for the Macho Man.
And you see what he does. He gets out and he instinctively walks right back to the center of the ring. That's the spot. As long as he's there, he can't lose. Now here against the ropes, this is Haugan's chance. Haugan, when he has Camacho against the ropes, the trigger needs to go off in his brain. He needs to step it up instantly and force Camacho back to the ropes. It's the only chance he has to win, from what I can see.
One of those sports vocabulary terms that sometimes is vaguely defined, but here clearly defined by Hector Camacho, ring generalship.
Exactly right. He's a master. He's a master at almost every facet of the game. And a guy like that, you have to beat him with your strength and your desire. You know, you're not going to out-slick him. Most likely, you're not going to outthink him. And he's got so many physical gifts, natural gifts, that it's just going to be hard to overcome for a guy like Haugan.
One-two from Haugan, misses.
I'll be willing to bet anything that sitting in the middle of these rounds and sitting on the stool, Haugan probably thought Camacho would have worn down quite a bit more so at this point than he has. I think he's probably a little disappointed and a little bit surprised that Camacho's still pretty sharp at this point in the fight.
You know, I think his corner fully believes in that too. I think that if you listen to what they've been saying, they're looking across and saying, you're in better shape, you're better condition, Greg. He's getting tired. That's not necessarily reality.
Right, I think that's wishful thinking. I think that's what they planned on, and maybe they want to give him the impression that it's working to keep him in it, because they can't say to him, hey, you know, this guy across the ring looks great, you know, because they don't want to kill his spirit.
They're looking for a mirror image of what happened the first time these two fought.
I think everybody kind of thought that was what was going to happen, but Camacho makes the difference.
We'll see if Haugan can turn it around. We come to the end of round number 7. Five rounds to go for the vacant WBO junior welterweight title. Greg Haugan trying to close in on the elusive target of Hector Camacho. Camacho has been coming forward and trying to make the fight much more than we've seen in recent years.
He's actually, offensively, he's looked more active and better than he has in a long time. But I'll tell you a crazy thing. I believe he's won every round. So theoretically, he could play it safe. It wouldn't be exciting, but, you know, and he would never do this. But just to give you the mindset, he could coast through these last 5 rounds, lose the last 5 rounds, and still on paper win the fight. Haugan obviously has to pick it up. They have, even the corner, despite what they wish happened, they have to know they're behind, and he needs to, you know, basically needs a knockout at this point if he does it, because if he wins every round, he still loses.
Let me play the other side there. I agree with you, especially the first 4 rounds, that Camacho clearly built up a lead on the scorecards. Rounds 5, 6, and 7, although I personally favor the work of Camacho, I could see where Haugan started to close the gap a little bit, started to press the action a little more, and was accomplishing things that he wasn't accomplishing early on, and this crowd has been rallying support behind him. The fight is starting to turn into more of the fight that Haugan was looking for, but Camacho isn't retreating.
Right.
Camacho's meeting him.
Well,
Camacho's willing.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing. I'll give you the mindset of people, judges and fans alike. If I beat you 4 rounds in a row easily, and then the 5th round I beat you, but it's hard, people will instinctively give it to the other guy because they say, hey, he did much better that round. Well,
but he still maybe didn't win it.
He did much better, but he didn't win. So a lot of people might have this fight even, which is unjust. You know,
I think the best you could have it is 4 rounds to 3.
Right.
And if you told me it was a clean sweep going Camacho's way, I'm not going to argue much against you.
Right, because, I mean, big rounds count as much as small rounds.
No
and,
doubt.
And I think he edged every round, personally, even though Haugan did better in rounds.
Haugan still trying to corral Camacho, and Camacho does that right there. Left lead. Back to the jab. He's not countering as much as we've seen in recent years, and it's a welcome change.
And here's another thing. Judges are human, and judges are looking at it from a different spot in the arena. Maybe one of them has Haugan winning. I mean, you never know.
We've seen it all.
That's what I'm saying. The crazier things have happened, definitely.
Crazy things happened the first time these two met up, in what was a fight that Camacho went out early and jumped out in front of the scorecards, and then Haugan rallied at the end. Reno's Sparks Convention Center. Greg Haugan came to Reno 3 weeks ago to finish up his preparation for this rematch against Hector Macho Camacho. Round number 9. There were many pre-fight reports that speculated that maybe Greg Haugan overtrained for this fight. Haugan says that his preparation for both Camacho fights has been the best of his career. Camacho with the 1-2, southpaw right jab, followed by the straight left. Always returning fire, John Scully.
Always. I mean, that's his MO. He answers back well. So you can never, he's not the guy, you can't throw punches at Camacho and be happy with what you've done, because he'll answer right back. And the better you do, the better he'll do.
Haugan tries to dig underneath, go inside to the body. Coming forward now.
You know, one thing they, Haugan trained here, it's because of the altitude. The altitude is higher here, and the theory is that if you train here, you'll win. Like if you train in New York, say Camacho trained in New York, and then he comes here, they say that your conditioning will not be the same. It'll be worse. So
we'll see. Like the strategy by Haugan to come to the mountains early enough and become acclimated to the situation.
Right, you can't come out here a day ahead of time or a couple days. It doesn't work like that. Your whole body needs to be overhauled. You have to be here a good 10 days in advance. So Haugan definitely made a good move doing that. I'm not sure what Camacho did to prepare, but they say, and a lot of it is mental, I believe, the altitude difference. Like a lot of fighters, as soon as they hear that the fight's in a higher altitude, they get nervous and they get crazy and they start thinking of all these thoughts. And, who knows? Maybe if a guy didn't know that was the theory, it might not even bother him. The mind is a powerful thing. So I think Haugan probably feels good that he's been here for this long.
Haugan stalking here in round number 9 against Camacho. To the inside where they exchange. Camacho goes underneath. Haugan misses with a right hand up top, and then exits out the side door, does Camacho. Really utilizing those legs, something that you brought up early on. Camacho, constant movement side to side, not making an easy target for Haugan.
I'll tell you, though, I think this is the first point in the fight where I think I could say Camacho showing me signs of fatigue. Like his legs, while he's still moving, he doesn't have that quick bounce, that quick step. I think he's moving out of necessity, out of trying to get out of Haugan's way.
Agreed.
So
Natural course of action of a fight, it starts to erode away. Much better round here for Greg Haugan. But still, will it be enough as we come down to the final 3 rounds for this vacant WBO title? More to come. Four and a half years ago, Greg Haugan upset Jimmy Paul to win the IBF's lightweight title. Had the trilogy with Vinny Pazienza. He lost 2 of those fights. Lost to Pernell Whitaker and was thought to be on the slide in his career until 3 months ago when he had an upset split decision victory against Hector Macho Camacho. Now 3 rounds to go in the rematch. Camacho trying to avenge the lone loss in his illustrious career.
Now these last 3 rounds are going to be huge because I could see how a judge could have it 6-3. You know, give Haugan the benefit of the doubt a couple times or one time. Maybe it's 6-3. That sounds like a big advantage, but there's 3 rounds left. It could end up 6-6. It could end up a draw. Or seeing how some of those close rounds, one guy's sitting in one part of the arena and he sees a couple punches land that we don't see from our spot. So this fight, while I think Camacho's comfortably ahead, there's still 3 rounds to go. That could definitely be pivotal. Haugan could still pull this out.
You know, I remember while watching the first go-round between these two back in February, thinking that it was kind of the tortoise against the hare. At some point, does that tortoise of Greg Haugan just need to stand up and run a little more and go after it a little more and press a little more?
Right. I mean, at this point, he's got the crowd behind him. If he has to show, it's not all about skill. You have to show the judges, I want to win. And that can sway a guy. Some guys, judges are human. They look at a guy, they may look at a guy like Camacho and go, this guy's an underachiever. Subconsciously, they might not want to give him credit because they think he could be greater than he is, so they don't give him credit. Let Haugan show, I want to win. More than anything in my life, I want to win this fight. And maybe they'll say, yeah, you earned it. You earned that round. Even though you're not the sharper boxer, you earned that round. So he's got to show anything he can show. Like there, dig down. He's got to dig and show to everybody that he wants to win.
Showed a little oomph right there. And now chasing Camacho back with 2 jabs. But he had good work against the ropes with the sweeping body shot before placing a straight right hand. That straight right hand was deflected by the left glove of Camacho.
People, judges included, they love to see desire and they love to see the underdog. And I still think he's the underdog in this case. So he's got to show it. He's got 3 rounds to do it.
Underneath, flurry again for Camacho. That's been there all night. 2 championship rounds to go from Reno.
Come on, you got 6 minutes. 6 minutes. Let's throw some punches in there. Try not those, you know. Let's go. This is what we're going to give you, huh?
6 minutes of your life.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Haugan and Camacho. Round number 11. The tone has changed a bit in the corner of Greg Haugan. Urgency would be the key word. 6 minutes in your life. You have 6 minutes to do it. Let's throw some punches.
And I think what they mean is, I know what they mean. I mean, strategy is not going to really take you so far anymore. They've reached the point where you've got to show desire. You've got to inflict some damage. You have to win these rounds. You have to steal the rounds, even if that's what it comes to. You have to show everybody that you want to win. and step your game up. There's two rounds. You don't know how close it is because he may feel he's losing and his spirit might be sapped a little bit, but he may find out that he lost the fight by 2 rounds and he gave the last 2 away. So you don't want to regret things later. You have to fight to the final bell. You never know how these judges have it. To his credit, though, Camacho hasn't faded like he did last time. He's obviously in better shape. He's proven that. He's still fighting a good fight right to this point.
Of course, the beauty of Hector Camacho is the fact that as much as he led in the first half of this fight and was the aggressor, he can always go back to his natural forte of being more defensive-minded and a counterpuncher once he feels he has built a lead on the scorecards.
Right, he's the guy that when he does get tired, he still has a good strategy to use. Like, he can conserve energy like nobody can. He's a master at that. He can always look pretty good even when he's tired.
Such is the case moments ago as you saw him just walk Haugan back, takes time off the clock, brings the ref in, much like Bobby Ferrara's visit right there. Now Ferrara points the finger and says, "I'm watching you." Flurries underneath just to keep the judges honest and remind them who's leading this fight. And keeps on frustrating Greg Haugan, who's searching for the answer and tried to find it with a sweeping right hand.
And Camacho's very smart. He realizes that Haugan's got some energy coming on here, and Haugan's going to want to dig him on the ropes. So he has no shame. He grabs him. That's good boxing. He minimizes Haugan's effectiveness.
Haugan tries a solid 1-2. Camacho shoe shines. Uppercut on the inside from Camacho. And then once again pushes down and ties up behind the head and with the left arm. Three minutes to go. Camacho and Haugan. Hector Macho Camacho being taped up one last time. The mouthpiece in. 3 minutes away from potentially avenging the only loss of his career. Will they touch gloves this time? Apparently not. You remember what happened when they fought 3 months ago when Camacho was deducted a point for refusing to touch gloves to start the final round. It cost him dearly. A split decision loss instead of a draw. Ironically, at the end of the 11th round, there was a point deduction because Camacho hit Haugan after the bell. But Haugan is seemingly well behind on the scorecards. We'll see if that holds up based on this pro-Haugan crowd here in Reno. Camacho a little more willing to fight here, John Scully, than he was in rounds 8, 9, 10, and 11.
I definitely feel like, it's obvious his conditioning is better, his mindset is better, and I get the impression he feels like he can't be hurt by Haugan so much. I think he's not really trying to minimize Haugan's power. I think he's trying to minimize Haugan stealing the round from him by just out-punching him. So he punches and he holds him so Haugan can't hit back. Like right there, perfect example. And, he's fighting a good fight. He's making a better case for himself than he did last time. But it would be amazing if that point deduction impacted the score in a couple minutes.
Wouldn't it, though? How ironic would that be? That's what happened 3 months ago. Haugan more aggressive here in this 12th and final round. Camacho landed the straight left and then ties up when he has the opportunity. Just to throw a wet blanket on that fire of Greg Haugan. Haugan still searching for the answers. The crowd chanting Haugan, Haugan. The how being the key part of it. How will he do it against Camacho here with only a couple minutes to go?
He's got to put the punch together. Like, he's throwing one punch, one punch, one punch. He's got to let his hands go. Before Camacho, like right there, he should sit down and let his hands go. 4, 5, 6 at a time before Camacho can grab him.
He split the guard well with a straight right-handed Haugan, but there just needs to be more.
He can't worry about landing on. It's not going to matter where he hits him. He's got to throw punches. The judges want to see punches fly. It doesn't matter where he lands them. It's too hard to tell exactly where they land when you throw 6 or 7 anyway. He needs to appear to win the round. Even if he doesn't land perfect shots, he has to look like he won the round by letting his hands go.
Camacho fires off a straight left before tying up Haugan. Haugan's running out of time.
He's got to look for a huge shot. He doesn't get it.
It never came. Camacho celebrating around the ring and raised up. And that's a very different look than we've seen in the past on Camacho, as Haugan feels good about his efforts. It'll be interesting to hear the scores. Camacho seemed to dominate the early action and then hold on for a win. But stranger things have happened like they did 3 months ago, so maybe some concern from Camacho.
Doug Tucker scores the bout, 115 to 112. He has it for Hector Camacho. And Dave Moretti scores the bout, 114 to 113 for the winner by split decision, Hector Camacho.
What a strange scene here as the judges' scores were read. Hector Camacho left the ring as if he sensed something, or maybe was tipped off, hey, this may not go your way, and then they're read. It was hard to believe that it's only a split decision win for Camacho. One judge had it 115-112 for Haugan. Hard to believe. For John Scully, I'm Joe Tessitore.